الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك وعلمنا من لدنك علما ينفعنا في الدين والدنيا يا كريم. أما بعد, all praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, how do you think the test was? Too easy or too hard or moderate?
We'll see how the test goes.
If you think it was too easy, put your hand up please. Okay. So the first question is, when starting dhikr, is it recommended to say Bismillah at the beginning? And the answer is?
Yes.
No, it's not. Yes. Okay. So it's not recommended to say Bismillah at the beginning. Okay. Yes.
If it's fardun ala madhabs, is it sunnah on us for us?
Not everything. Not everything, yeah? Usually, but not everything. So, one of the things we said in dhikr is that it's sunnah to say Bismillah at the beginning of anything important other than dhikr. Other than dhikr. Yes? Okay. Is it haram to say Bismillah when beginning a haram action?
Yes.
Of course, yes, it's haram. Is it compulsory to send salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam whenever his name is mentioned? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No, it's not compulsory, yeah? It's not compulsory according to the Mu'tamad, even though some scholars have believed it is compulsory. So it's important, it's extremely important, because some scholars say it's compulsory, but it's not. Abu Shujā was called Shamsuddin because his name was Muhammad. Yes.
The Zoom is frozen.
The Zoom is frozen. Okay. Should be working now.
I don't think they've heard everything that's mentioned.
Okay. So brothers on Zoom, the first thing we said is that the first answer, is it compulsory to say Bismillah, is it sunnah to say Bismillah when starting dhikr? The answer is no. Is it haram to say Bismillah when doing haram action? Yes. Is it compulsory to send salat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when his name is mentioned? No. Abu Shujā was named Shamsuddin because his name was Muhammad? Yes. The definition of tahara is not lifting hadath and removing khabath, or lifting and removing anything that has the same meaning of hadath and khabath. No, that is the definition of tahara. Okay. Tahara can be done with water that has dirt mixed with it, even if it changes color. Who said no?
No. I said no.
The answer is yes. There's one thing that even if it changes the color of the water, you can still do tahara with it, which is dirt. Yeah? Even if it changes the color of the water. Okay. So dirt is also a tahur. It's also something that cleans you. So even if it's mixed with water, it doesn't matter. Even if you mix it on purpose, you get dirt and you put it with water and you make wudu with it, it's fine. Quran can be read on major hadith if it was meant to be dhikr. Yes, of course. Substances that can be used for different kinds of tahara include water, yes. Dirt, yes. Dirt mixed with water, yes. A stone, yes. Burning, no. Tools used in tanning, yes. Okay. All the above, no. So, in our madhab, burning something doesn't change it from impure to pure. In some madhabs it does. So the ash of something impure is also impure. The ash of something impure is impure. That's in the Hanafi madhab, it becomes pure because it changes into a different thing. But in the Shafi'i madhab, it doesn't change; it's still impure. Okay, and any part that is removed from an animal while it is alive has the same ruling when it comes to purity or not as the same animal if it was not slaughtered, if it was slaughtered, or it is generally impure unless it's an animal that can be consumed.
So all are correct?
No. Which one is correct? No. First one. Yeah? The first one. So, any part that is removed from an animal has the same ruling as that animal when it's dead, when it's not slaughtered. If that animal was pure when it's not slaughtered, then it would be pure. If the animal is pure when it is not slaughtered, it would be pure. And if a person dies, they're pure. So if your hand was cut off, your hand is also pure. If a sheep dies without being slaughtered, is it pure? It's not pure. So if the leg of a sheep falls off, can we go and have a barbecue and cook that leg and eat it? No. Why? Because it takes the same ruling as the sheep if it was not slaughtered. Okay? Dead beings that are pure, even if not slaughtered, include fish, yes. Prawns, yes. Lotus, yes. Muslim, yes. Non-Muslims,
Yes.
insects that have not flowing blood,
Yeah.
no. They're impure, but if they fall into water, it doesn't make it najas.
Yeah.
It's a special condition, but they are impure. Okay, utensils made from the following are haram: gold, haram, of course. Silver, haram. Diamonds and pearls, not haram. Pearls, only gold and silver for males? No, males and females. So any utensil with gold and silver is haram unless it has a tiny bit of silver, and we mentioned details in the class.
But Sheikh, sorry, can you make wudu with that utensil?
If you make wudu, it's haram, but your wudu is correct.
Oh, okay.
If you make wudu with that, it's haram, but your wudu is correct. Okay, the following can be used as a miswak. Your fingers? No. Handkerchief? Yes, that can be used as a miswak. Toothbrush? Okay. All the past, if you don't have a miswak, no, that's not a condition. You can use them, the ones that we mentioned, even if you have a miswak. Okay. Intention must be made in wudu just before you wash your face? No. While you wash your face?
Yes.
Yes. The rest of them, no. Okay. It's sunnah to make wudu when doing the following: visiting the Prophet ﷺ? Yes. Making adhan? Yes. Eating camel meat?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
You can make it.
After eating camel meat. So that's no. But if you meant before, then it would be correct. Going to bed? Yes.
Yes.
So all of them are correct. Ghusl for Jum'ah counts for wudu? It does not count for wudu?
Yes.
It doesn't count for wudu. It doesn't count for wudu. A khuf must be strong enough to walk on? Yes. Non-see-through? No. In our method, it can be see-through. Yeah, so if it's made from glass, for example, it's okay, yeah? Okay, so I think everyone got a very high mark. It seems that everyone is on track, inshallah. So next test will be a lot harder, inshallah ta'ala. Because it seems too easy for everyone, inshallah. Okay. Khair. Inshallah, we'll get onto today's class. Because I don't have a project at home, we will, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, just be following from our books, and the brothers on Zoom can see the PowerPoint, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah ta'ala. So, okay, alhamdulillah, we're up to the section of Tayamum. Tayamum is doing the tahara with dirt instead of wudu or instead of ghusl. Instead of wudu or instead of ghusl. The definition of Tayammum is transferring, purifying dust to the face and hands with a specific intention instead of wudu or ghusl, or instead of a part of wudu or ghusl. So it's transferring, purifying dust that is tahur, that purifies, to the face and hands with a specific intention, which is the intention of istibahat as-salah. We're going to get to that inshallah. Instead of wudu or ghusl, or instead of a part of wudu or ghusl. That's the definition of tayammum. And inshallah, when you see the video, you can see the presentation, inshallah ta'ala. So, there are 7 main reasons that make tayammum permissible. Tayammum is not permissible for no reason. For example, if we have water around and there's nothing forcing us to make tayammum, is it okay to just go and make tayammum? Does it count for anything? It doesn't. It doesn't count for anything. It only becomes permissible once one of these 7 things happen to you. Once one of these 7 things happen to you. The first thing is loss of water. A physical loss of water. There is no water around you. You can't reach water to make wudu or to make ghusl at all. Now, in the larger books of fiqh, they mention details, like how far the water needs to be in order for you to be able to make tayammum and not go look for water. That is mentioned in larger books of fiqh. We won't get into that today, inshallah ta'ala, because we have a few things to knock off before the end of this class, inshallah, so we can finish Tahara. So the first thing is loss of water. The second thing is the need of water for other purposes. For example, you need water to drink from. You need water to drink from. If you need to drink water, do we say you have to go and make wudu or make ghusl, and even if you die from thirst or get harmed, not even die, they get harmed from thirst? No. Khalas, you need to drink, it's okay. You can make tayammum and keep the water and drink it when you need to. That's fine, inshallah. Misplacing water is also a reason. Misplacing it. So you have water, but you misplaced it. You don't know where it is. Okay? Prayer time comes and you can't find it. What do? Make tayammum also. The fourth reason is illness that prevents you from using water. An illness that prevents you from using water. So there's a harm on you if you use water. The fifth one is a plaster or a bandage or something covering a part of wudu or ghusl. When something is covering a part of wudu or ghusl, is it permissible just to wash on top of that part? No, it doesn't count. Why? Because the water is not going to go inside. It's not going to touch your skin. So just wiping on it or washing it even won't count. You need to also make tayammum. So you do your whole wudu and you wipe that part, and then you make tayammum for that part that you didn't wash. You make tayammum for that part that you didn't wash. Not for your whole body. The rest of your body is fine. But say you're making wudu and your arm has a patch here, you make tayammum for that part and you make the rest of your wudu normally. A wound is the sixth reason. A wound, so if you can't wash that wound, it's going to harm you, then you make tayammum. And also, a possibility of harm if using water. Possibility of harm if you're using water. For example, your skin has an infection that if you use water, it will make it severely damageable, or it'll make you even worse. These are all the reasons, 7 reasons to make tayammum. 7 reasons to make tayammum.
Could the possibility be harm also like from fear? Like there's a danger if you go to the area where the water is?
Yeah, that's not in harm, that's in loss, yeah?
Loss.
So loss, in the big books of fiqh, loss means that either it's too far, or it's far, it's not that far, but then there's a danger. There will be, for example, they say in fiqh books, there's a lion, for example, that's in that area, and if you go to get water, it will attack you, then you have to make tayammum, yeah? So, yeah, that's under loss. Yes.
What if you're like really injured that like going to the bathroom might hurt you?
Going to the bathroom first?
Yeah. Like,
Using what do you mean?
No, like you broke your legs or something, like you can't really like walk, you know.
Okay. So can someone bring you water?
Say you live alone or something.
Yeah, so you can't reach water.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's Tayamum.
what do you
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah. Usually if in that case, if you can't reach water, you can't reach even dust.
Yeah.
You're probably going to just have to pray the way you are. If you can't reach it, dust or water, you can't just make tayammum on the ground. It doesn't count. And then repeat your salah when you can. Repeat your salah when you can. Okay. Okay, now we'll go back to the book inshallah. I'll read the Arabic. and then inshallah I'll ask someone to read English. Imam Abu Shujā says فصل وشرائط التيمم خمسة أشياء: وجود العذر بسفر أو مرض، ودخول وقت الصلاة، وطلب الماء وتعذر استعماله، وعوازه بعد الطلب، التراب الطاهر له غبار، فإن خالطه جس أو رمل لم يجز. وفرائضه 4 أشياء: النية ومسح الوجه ومسح اليدين مع المرفقين والترتيب. وسننه 3 أشياء: التسمية وتقديم اليمنى على اليسرى والموالاة. والذي يبطل التيمم 3 أشياء: ما أبطل الوضوء، ورؤية الماء في غير وقت الصلاة والردة. وصاحب الجبيرة يمسح عليها ويتيمم ويصلي ولا إعادة عليه إذا كان وضعها على طهر. وسننه 3 أشياء: التسمية وتقديم اليمنى على اليسرى والموالاة. والذي يبطل التيمم 3 أشياء: ما أبطل الوضوء، ورؤية الماء في غير وقت الصلاة والردة. وصاحب الجبيرة يمسح عليها ويصلي ولا إعادة عليه إذا كان وضعها على طهر. ويتيمم لكل فريضة ويصلي بتيمم واحد ما شاء من النوافل. Can someone read the whole entire section of Tayammum, inshallah?
Dry ablution. Conditions. There are 5 conditions for making dry ablution, Tayammum. A. The existence of an excuse because of traveling or sickness. B. The time of prayer having entered. C. Seeking water. D. An excuse or the incapacity to use water after seeking it. And E. The existence of pure earth containing dirt, and if it is mixed with gypsum or sand, it does not suffice. Obligatory actions. It has 4 obligatory actions. A. Intention. B. Wiping the face. C. Wiping the hands up to and including the elbows. And D. Its order. Recommended actions. It has 3 recommended actions. Number 1, saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Number 2, wiping the right limb before the left. And number 3, performing the actions consecutively. Invalidators. 3 things invalidate dry ablution. Number 1, anything that invalidates ablution. Number 2, seeing or finding water before praying. And number 3, apostasy, may Allah protect us. Splints. Someone with a splint wipes over the splint or cast or bandage, performs dry ablution and then prays. He is not required to repeat the prayer if the splint was applied while he was in a state of ritual purity and is not on the limbs upon which dry ablution is made, the face and arms up to the elbow. Dry ablution and prayers. One makes a dry ablution for each obligatory prayer. One may pray as many supererogatory prayers as one wishes with a single dry ablution. Types of filth.
That's it.
I could keep going.
Okay, we're just going to go over this quickly, inshallah. Like I said, the larger books of fiqh go into detail of Tayammum. We're just going to mention the most important parts because Tayammum doesn't happen much in your life. It doesn't occur many times. So we're just going to mention the key points that you must know, inshallah. Anyone want the heat on, inshallah?
You can close the door.
If anyone wants to, just let us know, inshallah, okay? If you want to close the door, that's okay, inshallah. Okay, so after the reasons of Tayammum that we mentioned, the author didn't mention them, okay? The 7 reasons. After them, so either not having it physically or not being able to use it or any of those reasons, or having an effect. In order for you to do your Tayammum, you can't just do it without noticing these conditions. For example, if someone knows that doing wudu harms him, so he says, okay, I'm going to go and do Tayammum. It's 10 a.m. in the morning, okay? And he wants to make Tayammum for Dhuhr, for example. Will it count? No. One of the conditions is that the time of Salah enters. So there's conditions after the reasons of Tayammum. Once you have one of those reasons, you have to look into these conditions of Tayammum. Tayammum has very strict conditions. Most of these conditions come back to one thing, which is that you're not allowed to do Tayammum until Salah becomes compulsory upon you, or the time of Salah enters. If it's not a compulsory Salah, then the time has to enter at least. Duha time, witr time, the time has to be there. The reason of Salah has to be there. If it's not there yet, you can't make Tayamum because you are not a person of that salah yet. And Tayamum is only there once you become a person of that salah and then cannot do the salah. That's the philosophy of Tayamum basically.
Does that mean you have to do it for every prayer? Like
Every
after the
prayer,
end
yes.
of
For every prayer, you have to do Tayamum. Every compulsory prayer. Every compulsory, not every sunnah prayer, of course. Okay, so there are 5 conditions. He says here, the first one is existence of an excuse because of travel or sickness. Now basically, what he's saying is that usually, if you can't access water, it's because you are either traveling, in the old days, you travel, there's no water in the desert, yeah? So they used to say traveling. But it's not actually traveling. It's just being in an area that doesn't have water usually. That's what it's called. They say traveling because in that time, people used to always have water in the city and they would not have water outside the city. But if you're in a city that doesn't have water, the same thing, okay? So not having access, not being in an area of access to water, okay? Or being in an area that has access to water, but you are ill. These things we already mentioned. So basically saying that the conditions that we mentioned before have to be there first, before you can look at them. Number 2, the time of prayer has to enter. The time of prayer has to enter. Once Dhuhr time enters, you can make Tayamum for Dhuhr. You can pray your sunnahs after Dhuhr, it's fine. As much as you want. And then, once Asr time enters, you have to make a new Tayamum for Asr. And then you can, of course, you can't pray the sunnah after Asr. But generally, you can pray the sunnahs with the prayer. But every compulsory prayer has to have a new Tayamum. The third condition is to seek water. This condition only applies to people who don't have physical access to water. But if you are ill, then there's no need for you to seek water, to look for water. All you need to do is just do Tayamum straight away. But for the people who are doing Tayamum because of being unable to access water, they have to seek water first. In the big books of fiqh, they mention in detail of how to seek water. Okay, for example, let's say if you're in an area with a hill, you go on top of the hill and look around you, how many kilometers and how many. There's a lot of details. We're not going to go into that, inshallah ta'ala. Just seeking water is what we need to know for now, inshallah ta'ala. Number 4, an excuse or the incapacity to use water after seeking it. So once you seek water, you can't find it. That's when you're allowed to make Tayamum. Time of prayer enters. You go seek water. And after seeking water, you can't find it, then you can do Tayamum, okay? And then he says, the existence of pure earth. In our madhab, Tayamum can only be done with 2 things. Dust, so, or earth that has dust basically, so dirt that has dust, not just any dirt, not mud, not clay, but something with dust, or sand that has dust. There's 2 types of sand that has no dust, and sand that has dust. Sand that has dust has the same ruling as pure earth that has dust. Okay, once the time of Salah enters and we go through these conditions and we have a reason for Tayamum, we can make Tayamum. How do you make Tayamum? There's 4 compulsory parts to Tayamum. Okay, the first thing is intention. When do we intend? While we start Tayamum. So while we hit the ground with our hands. So you will have, for example, a pile of dust in front of you. You have Bismillah, and it's sunnah to say Bismillah, and then you intend while hitting the ground, and then you keep your intention until you wipe your face, or you intend again when wiping your face. So either you keep your intention for the whole time until you wipe your face, you start wiping your face, or you make the intention again when wiping your face, because your face is the first part of Tayamum. So you have it in both those states. When doing your arms, you don't need intention. Just when you start Tayamum, like wudu, same to wudu. intention, and then he said, wiping your face. So you have, once you strike the ground with your hands, you have dirt on your hands, you wipe your face with that dirt, and you wipe every single part of your face. Every single part of your face. So even around your eyes, around your ears, all of your face needs to be wiped with dust. All of it. Make sure you do it properly because it's the same as the wudu. Water has to reach everything. Dust must also reach everything.
So in terms of the intention, is it like wudu in that the first instance you're touching your face, you need to have the intention, but then when you're wiping the rest of your face, you don't need to keep the intention?
Yeah. Okay. So after that he said, intention, wiping your face, and then wiping your hands. Okay. So how do you wipe your hands? You strike the ground again. And you wipe your hands like this. You start with one side and you wipe from the top and then bottom. Top, bottom. So that way you do the upper side of your right hand and then the lower side of your right hand. Then you do the same with your next hand, and then your Tayamum is done. The fourth compulsory part of Tayamum is to do it in order. Do your face first, and then your hands and your arms. Don't do it in the opposite order. Whether your Tayamum is for wudu or for ghusl, you need to do it in order. Okay, what is recommended? What's the sunnah of Tayamum? Saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Doing the right before your left. If you do your left first, it's correct, but it's not sunnah. And muwala, doing them together. Not having a large gap, time between your face and hands. What breaks your Tayamum? Anything that breaks your wudu breaks your Tayamum. Anything that breaks your wudu breaks your Tayamum. And then he said, seeing water. So basically if you're praying and you made Tayamum because you didn't have water with you, and then water becomes accessible, someone brings water to you, and you haven't started to pray yet, you haven't started salah yet, then you need to make wudu. Tayamum is broken, khalas. Okay, what if someone brings you water? You make Tayamum, someone brings you water, and you want to make wudu to pray, and then they run away with the water. Okay? Can you start pray with the Tayamum?
No, because it's already broken.
Yeah, you can't. Your Tayamum is broken. Just seeing water breaks the Tayamum. Okay? Because you became able again. You became able to use water. When you're able to use, you have to become unable again to use water for you to make Tayamum again. That's how Tayamum works. It's a very specific tahara that is only allowed in certain circumstances. Okay? And the last thing is ridda, waliyadhu billah. Someone living Islam that breaks your Tayamum but does not break your wudu. Doesn't break your ghusl. Yeah? Doesn't break your wudu, living Islam, waliyadhu billah. Someone, waliyadhu billah, left Islam, they came back and they didn't break their wudu, they don't need to repeat wudu, but they need to repeat the Tayamum if they did Tayamum. Okay. The next part of this section is al-jabair. It says here splints, basically something that covers a part of your wudu parts, basically. In the old days, it would be a piece of wood, for example, that they tie around. Today we have, for example, plaster. We have anything, band-aids even. These things all come out. How does someone with this on them make wudu? It's simple. This person makes wudu and wipes over these parts and does tayammum for that part. And then he prays. If this splint was put on him when he had wudu on before it, he doesn't need to repeat his salah. But if he had it without wudu on, then once he's better, he needs to repeat those salawat.
He needs to repeat the salah?
Yes. Or if that splint was on his face or his hands or arms, he also needs to repeat salah, because these are the two parts of tayammum. How is he going to make tayammum if they're covered. So he needs to be able to make Tayamum for him not to need to repeat his salah. Is that clear?
So if he's sick for 1 month, he has to repeat 1 month's prayer.
Unless he had that splint on Tahara and it's not in his hands and face. For example, he had something on his foot, on his leg. He had wudu on and then his leg broke. Okay? What does he do? We say, khalas, cover your leg and make wudu, make Tayamum. When you reach your leg, wipe it and then make Tayamum, and you don't need to repeat your salah. Okay. Okay. And
Sorry, Sheikh, just to clarify with that one, if the leg was broken, did you say if you make Tayamum you need to wipe it? Because isn't it with the regular Tayamum you only wipe the face and the...
no, you need to wipe it with your wudu. And then make Tayamum for it as well. So you wipe over it. When you're making wudu, you wash your hands, you wash your face, your arms, you wipe your head, and you're supposed to wash your feet. When it comes to the part that's covered, what do? You get a wet hand and you wipe over it. Okay, is that enough? No. What do you need to do as well? Also make Tayamum for that part that you didn't wash.
Oh, okay. So even though in a regular Tayamum you wouldn't even touch the leg, but in that case you'd still...
You don't make Tayamum for the leg. You wipe it with water, not with dust.
Yeah.
So you make wudu, you wipe that part with water, and then make Tayamum in your hands and face only.
More after that.
Hands and face only Tayamum. Don't make Tayamum, don't put dust on that part, no.
Oh, okay.
Just hands and face. Yeah? That's
Just to clarify, if the splint was covering the face or the arms, the prayer always needs to be repeated.
always needs to be repeated. Because your Tayamum wouldn't count in that state. Okay. Alhamdulillah. I don't know if we have time for questions. We'll see if there's any questions in the chat. I'll count these questions as your guys' chance for questions. Can you perform Tayamum if you don't have enough water to perform wudu? So if you don't have enough water to make wudu, you use the water you have first, and then make Tayamum. Okay. After that he says types of filth. فصل وكل مائع خرج من السبيلين نجس إلا المني وغسل جميع الأبوال والأرواث واجب إلا بول الصبي الذي لم يأكل الطعام فإنه يطهر برش الماء عليه ولا يعفى عن شيء من النجاسات إلا اليسير من الدم والقيح وما لا نفس له سائلة إذا وقع في الإناء ومات فيه فإنه لا ينجسه والحيوان كله طاهر إلا الكلب والخنزير وما تولد منهما أو من أحدهما والميتة كلها نجسة إلا السمك والجراد والآدمي ويغسل الإناء من ولوغ الكلب والخنزير 7 مرات إحداها بتراب ويغسل من سائر النجاسات مرة تأتي عليه والثلاث أفضل وإذا تخللت الخمرة بنفسها طهرت وإن تخللت بطرح شيء فيه لم تطهر.
Anything, so types of filth, anything wet that exits from the genitals is filth except for fluid released during orgasm, mani. Washing all urine and feces is obligatory except for urine from a male infant who has not eaten food, and it may be purified by sprinkling the affected area with water. Excusable filth. Filth is inexcusable except for small amounts of blood and pus and living things which do not possess flowing blood. If they fall into a container and die therein, they do not render it filthy. Animals. All animals are pure except for dogs, pigs, and offspring of both of them, or one of them with a pure animal. Dead animals which have not been slaughtered are filth except for fish, locusts, and human beings. Removing filth. Containers in which dogs or pigs have lapped are washed 7 times. One of the washings must include dirt. Other types of filth are washed once, but washing 3 times is better. Vinegar. Wine becomes pure when it turns into vinegar on its own. It does not become pure if it turns into vinegar because of a foreign substance, because the foreign substance has been added to it.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. This is the section that talks about different types of najasa and how to remove najasa. So we talked about tahara with ma, making wudu and ghusl. Talked about tanning. We talked about tayammum. The last thing is having something impure, having najasa come onto you and how to remove najasa. And then that's wall of tahara basically, okay? So, talking about najasa and its types is the last of the 4 outcomes that are achieved from tahara that we mentioned. Removing najasa with water is unique to this ummah. Follows Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to need to cut the najasa out of their clothes if they came into their clothes, but they couldn't just wash it. So it is something special to this, unique to this ummah. What is najasa? We took it in the first class. Najasa is filth that prevents from doing salah once it is on the body, clothes, or place of prayer. Filth that prevents you from doing salah once it is on your body, your clothes, or on the place of prayer. That's what najasa is. Anything najis is haram to consume, to swallow, whether it is harmful or not. Anything najis is haram to consume, whether it's harmful or not, unless it is extremely hard to prevent yourself from swallowing it. For example, if you have an apple and there's a dead worm inside, a small little worm that you can't really take out, or some types of cheeses that have worms in them in the old days, it's hard to take these little bugs out of it. If you eat it without really noticing, but you don't intend to eat the najasa, then that's fine, inshallah. But other than that, you can't consume anything that is impure. Okay, what are the types of najasa? This is not in the book, but this is going to make it a lot easier, inshallah. I'm going to go through it very quickly, inshallah. There's up to 21 to 23 types of najasa in the detailed books of fiqh. I'm going to mention the 13 most important types of najasa. Number 1, any liquid that comes out of a private part other than sexual fluid, mani. So liquid that comes out of any other part of your body is pure if it's not vomit or blood. But anything that comes out of your private parts and it's liquid is impure unless it is mani. Okay. Feces are impure even if they were from fish or animals that we can eat. It's permissible to consume, to swallow a small fish even if it has feces inside it. But large fish, big fish, need to be cleaned before we consume. So sardines and smaller fish can be swallowed by themselves, it's okay. Because it's hard to of course, clean them out. Prawns and those things can all be consumed. Number 3, dogs, including hunting dogs, are impure. Pigs are impure. Sexual fluid, mani, that comes from a dog or a pig is also impure. Liquid that comes out of sores and has an unpleasant smell, odor, or change color, is impure. Pus, alcohol, or any liquid that intoxicates in its original form. So if something, for example, you have drugs that intoxicate and you mix them with water, its original form is that it's not liquid, it's dry. You just put it into water. Does that become impure? No, it has to be liquid in its original form. It's originally liquid and it intoxicates. Then it would be najis. It won't be tahir anymore. Number 4, blood. Other than liver and spleen, these two parts of animals are pure. You can eat. You can have liver, you can have spleen. But if these two are crushed into pieces and come to normal blood, then it's also impure. So blood is impure also. Number 10 is vomit. Vomit is impure, meaning anything that comes out of the stomach is impure even if it hasn't changed. Even if it hasn't changed. If you drink a cup of tea and it comes out straight away, it's impure because it reached the stomach. So even if it hasn't changed, it is impure unless it is solid, like a pip, for example, or a stone. A pip or a stone is solid, doesn't change, it doesn't get affected by the liquid around it. You know, in Indonesia, there's a coffee that comes out of an animal. They swallow the seeds, and then it comes out, and it's still in the same form of a coffee bean. What do? As long as they wash it, it's pure. It's okay. Yeah, it's not pleasant. You don't want to drink it, but I'm just saying that that's the ruling. The Islamic ruling is that it's not najis if it's washed because it's solid. But if anything is liquid, it's not solid, then it becomes impure straight away. The moment it reaches the stomach, it's impure. Okay? Milk of any animal that cannot be consumed. Milk of any animal, so milk of a donkey, for example, is impure. Milk of a donkey is impure. Yeah? Dead animals, other than fish, lotus, and humans, are all impure. And the smoke of anything that is najis is impure. The smoke of something that is najis, or the ashes of something that is najis, is also impure. These are the 13 most important impure types of najasa.
So Shia, if these najasas are get in contact with your clothes or any fabric, so you need to like wash this cloth or?
If they are wet.
Yeah, if they are wet.
Or they're not wet, but you are wet. Your fabric is wet and it touches, then your fabric becomes najis. You need to clean it, unless in some cases that you don't need to clean it.
You do not?
Some cases you don't need to, like if it's a little bit of blood, or if it's a tiny bit that you can't really notice, you can't really see, then you don't need to clean it. But in most cases, you need to clean it. That's what's it's gonna come now, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. How do you remove najasa once you have najasa? So one of these 13 things come onto you. You come in contact with one of these things, and this thing is wet, or the part of you that touches it is wet. So the najasa comes onto you. How do you purify things from these types of najasa? There's 3 types of najasa: minor najasa, mediate najasa, normal najasa, and heavy najasa. Okay, what's the minor najasa? The urine of a little baby boy who is less than 2 lunar years, and he's only had milk or things that are made from milk. Milk or things that are made from milk.
Why does it mention a baby boy? What about baby boy?
Because there's a special hadith about that, yeah?
Oh.
Not for any other reason. Imam Shafi'i himself says, I don't know why. He said himself, he said, I don't know why. There's many reasons that scholars used to go into. For example, maybe the ladies have more heat in their body and things, and other reasons. Other scholars said maybe it's because in the Jahiliyyah, the time of before Islam, people used to prefer boys over girls. That's not right. They used to do that. So they would be carrying boys a lot. And when you carry someone a lot, it's easy to have urine come onto you. So Allah said, make it easy. They don't have to. Anyway, these are theories that were mentioned a long time ago. But Imam Shafi'i says, to tell the truth, I don't know the reason why. There's no clear reason that says why. But there is a hadith that says, يغسل من بول الجارية ويرش من بول الغلام. You wash from the urine of a little girl, and you sprinkle water on the urine of baby boy. So because of that hadith. Okay, normal najasa is every other type of najasa other than pigs and dogs. And any najasa from a pig or dog is heavy najasa. Okay. Now, the next important part in this class that is not mentioned in this book, the types of najasa that do not need to be removed for salah. Okay? I'm going to mention 8 important types of najasa that do not need to be removed. And the brothers who don't have the presentation, inshallah, go over the video when you're free, inshallah ta'ala. So number 1, small amounts of blood. Small amounts of blood from other than dogs and pigs. Small amounts of blood from other than dogs and pigs do not prevent salah. Okay. Also, the same thing occurs to pus and other liquids that are similar to blood. Number 3, tiny amounts of najasa that cannot be seen by the naked eye in a normal setting. So if someone urinates while standing, for example, and they're pretty sure, they know that a tiny bit of urine flicked back onto them, but they don't know how much. They're not sure how much. It could just be a tiny little drop that can hardly be seen. Then they can pray, they don't need to wash that because it's hard to not have any najasa at all on you. Okay. Feces and urine of fish. If you have a fish tank, have fish living with you, and they urinate and they, in a small amount of water, does that water become najis? No, it doesn't. Why? Because it's impossible to keep fish with that. Okay. Blood that is on the meat after slaughtering. Yeah? If you slaughter, there's going to be blood on the meat. Is that blood pure? It's not pure, but you can eat it. can have it on. You can pray when it's in your mouth. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't affect the salah because it's a necessity, for example. Small amounts of smoke that come out of something najis. If you burn something najis, the smoke that comes out of that, small amounts of that smoke is okay. Even if it's a dog or a pig. If you go, for example, to the market and they're roasting pig, okay, and some of the smoke comes onto you, that's okay. You don't need to wash it off. You can still pray. The area touched by the mouth of the breastfeeding baby if it vomits and continues to feed. So if a mother is breastfeeding her baby and it vomits, babies always have reflux, they vomit, and then it goes back and starts drinking again. Does the mother have to wash that part of her body every time she wants to pray? That's too hard. She can just get up and pray, and she doesn't need to wash that part because it's extremely hard for her. Insects that do not have flowing blood and fall into a liquid after dying, do not make that liquid impure. So it's forgiven as well. And many other small things mentioned by Imam Ibn Imad. Ibn Imad has a famous poem called Al-Ma'fuwat. Huge poem, mentions every single thing that is forgiven, that's najis but still okay to pray with. And most of the Shafi'i scholars have explained this book in detail, but usually it's studied in a later level of fiqh. Generally, things that are very hard to stay away from are forgiven. Generally, things that are very hard to stay away from. For example, we're walking in the streets and dogs walk on the same roads that we walk on and it's wet and they touch it. Do we have to wash the streets all the time, the roads that we walk on? Why? It's extremely hard to stay away from that. But khalas, that will be forgiven, inshallah. Okay. Can we continue or does everyone want to stop? I think we don't have time. I really wanted to finish the last section of Haid and Nifas. And we don't need to go into detail of Haid and Nifas, and that way we'll finish Tahara. But I think, unless everyone is okay, we won't continue. Does anyone want to stop here, inshallah?
Continue.
Anyone on Zoom, please let us know what you think. We only need 5-10 minutes maximum, inshallah ta'ala.
So just a question on Zoom about
Okay, there's one question about gelatin?
vinegar.
Vinegar. When alcohol turns into vinegar and becomes halal, does this ruling apply to gelatin? No. Some substances are impure but can turn into tahara, to become pure. This is not the normal case. Originally, nothing can turn into purity after being impure other than a few specific things. What are these things? Number one, vinegar, if it turns into alcohol without someone adding things into it while it was alcohol, then it's pure. Number two, another thing that becomes pure after being impure is misk. Misk is originally blood. It's blood of a deer, and it turns into misk after falling off. That is originally impure and it turns into purity. A tanning is the third thing. If you tan something, it's impure, then it turns pure. But generally, it's not the case. Anyway, the last section of Tahara, according to the Shafi'i scholars, is the section of Al-Hayd and Nifas. So, menstruation and postnatal bleeding. This section is extremely complicated. That's why in books like this, we don't go into the details of it. Because Imam Ahmad used to say, he spent 9 years of his life, Imam Ahmad himself, until he was able to understand the rulings of Hayd and Nifas. It's that complicated, yeah? And there's so many detailed cases that we need to go through. We're going to read what the author says, and I'm going to mention just key points. That's important for everyone to know, whether your brother or sister, to understand and to know. After that, the detailed issues should have a separate course or book, or will be studied in a larger book, inshallah. So he says here, فصل ويخرج من الفرج 3 دماء دم الحيض والنفاس والاستحاضة فالحيض هو الدم الخارج من فرج المرأة على سبيل الصحة من غير سبب الولادة ولونه أسود محتدم لذاع والنفاس هو الدم الخارج عقب الولادة والاستحاضة هو الخارج في غير أيام الحيض والنفاس أقل الحيض يوم وليلة وأكثره 15 يوما وغالبه 6 أو 7 وأقل النفاس لحظة وأكثره 60 يوما وغالبه 40 يوما وأقل الطهر بين الحيضتين 15 يوما ولا حد لأكثره وأقل زمن تحيض فيه المرأة 9 سنين وأقل الحمل 6 أشهر وأكثره 4 سنين وغالبه 9 أشهر يحرم بالحيض 8 أشياء الصلاة والصوم وقراءة القرآن ومس المصحف وحمله ودخول المسجد والطواف والوطء والاستمتاع ما بين السرة والركبة ويحرم على الجنوب 5 أشياء الصلاة والطواف وقراءة القرآن ومس المصحف وحمله واللبث والمسجد ويحرم على المحدث 3 أشياء الصلاة والطواف ومس المصحف وحمله.
Menstruation and postnatal bleeding. 3 types of blood exit from the vagina. Number 1, menstrual. Number 2, postnatal. Number 3, irregular. Menstrual blood is blood that normally exits from a woman's vagina and without being caused by delivery. It is black in color, hot and pungent. Postnatal bleeding is the blood that exits after childbirth. Irregular bleeding, Istihadah, is blood that exits out of the days of menstrual and postnatal bleeding. The minimum duration for menstruation is 24 hours. The maximum duration is 15 days. The average duration is 6 or 7 days. The minimum duration for postnatal bleeding is a single instant. Its maximum is 60 days. The most average duration is 40 days. The minimum duration of purity between 2 menstrual cycles is 15 days. It has no maximum limit. The minimum age at which a woman menstruates is 9 lunar years. The minimum duration for pregnancy is 6 months. The maximum duration is 4 years. The most common duration is 9 months. Actions unlawful without ritual purity. 8 things are unlawful because of menstruation and postnatal bleeding. Number 1, prayer. Number 2, fasting. Number 3, reciting the Quran. Number 4, touching and carrying the Quran. Number 5, entering the masjid or mosque. Number 6, circumambulating the Kaaba. Number 7, intercourse. Number 8, seeking sexual enjoyment from the area between the woman's navels and knees. 5 things are unlawful for someone in the state of major ritual impurity. Janaba. Number 1, prayer. Number 2, reciting Quran. Number 3, touching and carrying the Quran. Number 4, circumambulating the Kaaba. Number 5, remaining within a mosque. 3 things are unlawful for someone in the state of minor ritual impurity. Hadath. Number 1, prayer. Number 2, circumambulating the Kaaba. And number 3, touching and holding the Quran.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, Bismillah. So, there are 3 kinds of blood that can come out of a woman. Other than these 3 kinds, nothing exists. Any blood that comes out needs to be one of these 3 kinds. Now, if we know what postnatal bleeding is, that's something that happens after birth only. So let's not focus on it right now. Yeah? It has to be blood that comes after the birth of a child. So we have menstruation and we have istihadah, irregular bleeding. Okay? These are the 2 things that we want to focus on. In order for the blood to be considered a period, to be considered menstruation, there's conditions. If one of these conditions do not apply, it's irregular bleeding. The lady still needs to pray and do everything else. Okay? So only in the case when it's menstruation, when it's the conditions that we mentioned are there, the lady can stop praying and fasting and go through these details. Okay. So even if the period has a pattern, but the conditions that we mentioned don't apply, it's not Islamic menstruation. The conditions don't apply. In fiqh, they say there's hayd lughawi and hayd shar'i. There is basically a period according to the language and the norm of people, and there's a period according to Sharia, according to the detailed laws of Islam. The second one is what we're going to focus on. Okay, so if a small girl at the age of 8 lunar years has a period and it's regular, does she stop praying? No. Why? Because the Islamic period can only start after 9 years. After 9 years. Inshallah, it's clear. Okay. So anyone who does not have hayd, doesn't have menstruation, needs to pray and fast just like anyone else. If she's consistently bleeding and can't stop it, then before prayer she needs to wash and clean herself, and then put something to stop the blood if she can, and make wudu and pray immediately. Now, the minimum hayd or menstruation can only be 24 hours. If the blood is less than 24 hours, meaning that throughout the period, 15 days of period, we count the number of hours or minutes that she had blood in, and altogether they equal less than 24 hours, then it's not hayd, it's not a period, and she needs to repeat those prayers. But if the blood that she had in the window of 15 days, the window of days that could be period, are 24 hours plus of bleeding, then she needs to consider that a period, and she does not need to repeat those prayers. Hayd menstruation cannot go over 15 days. So the first drop of blood she sees until 15 days after that can only be considered a period. Nothing longer than that can be considered a period. Okay. Important things to understand. Number one, any blood before 9 lunar years is not a period, and no rulings of the period apply. Number two, if someone bleeds for the first time in their life and they can't distinguish heavy bleeding from weak bleeding, they don't know the difference, okay, then what do? They stop praying for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, it's the first time in their life, after 24 hours, they start to pray and fast again, and they count what happens. They write down what happens. The next month, if the pattern is the same, then they need to repeat the prayers that they prayed when they were on their period. If someone bleeds for the first time, but they can tell the difference between heavy bleeding and other bleeding, then the heavy bleeding is a period and the light bleeding is not a period. If someone has had a period before and has a general norm, they have a pattern, then the moment 15 days passes from their previous period, they must consider any drop of blood that they see a period, as long as it does not continue for more than 15 days. So if someone, which is like 90% of the ladies out there, have had periods before, they have a norm, they have a pattern. Blood comes for 6 days, sometimes 7 days, sometimes 9 days, sometimes 10 days, then it stops. Okay, for let's say 20 days, then it comes back again. If they have a pattern, if they're not new to Hayd and Nifas, then the moment a drop of blood comes after 15 days from their last period, they need to consider a period, even if it's not in the normal time of period. Even if it is light blood, not heavy blood. Okay? Now, the rest of the details of Hayd and Nifas must be studied in advance, like I said, but these general rules, rulings that it's good to understand and to memorize, inshallah ta'ala. What's haram to do when a lady is on her period? She can't pray, she can't do any salah, even if it's sujood al-shukr. Just making sujood for shukr. She can't do that. She can't fast. She can't fast. And if she's fasting and then the period comes in the middle of the day, she stops fasting. She doesn't have to eat, but she can't continue to fast. Reading Quran. Reading Quran is also haram unless she does it with the intention of dhikr, like we said in the previous part of the book. Carrying the Quran. She can't hold the Quran. Just like we mentioned, if someone is not in tahara, doesn't have wudu, doesn't have ghusl, they can't carry the Quran. Sitting in a masjid for a while, for a moment, okay, is haram, just like someone with a major impurity. They're only allowed to pass from door to door, but they can't sit down in the masjid or stand for a moment without moving in the masjid. Doing tawaf is also haram and doesn't count. Intercourse, even with a barrier, is haram, even with a barrier. is haram. Intercourse, even if the barrier is haram, seeking sexual enjoyment from the area between the woman's belly until her knees without a barrier is haram. But with a barrier is not haram. With a barrier is not haram, without a barrier is haram. Intercourse is haram in both cases. Intercourse is haram in both cases. If someone is on a major impurity, what is haram for them to do? They can't read the Quran, they can't touch the Quran, they can't carry the Quran, they can't sit in the masjid, and they can't pray. Okay? Someone's on a minor impurity, what can they do? What can they do? They can't do tawaf, and of course, major period as well. They can't do tawaf, they can't pray, they can't carry the Quran, and they can't touch the Quran. But they can sit in the masjid, they can read the Quran, it's fine. Okay, that's all for today, and by that, inshallah, we have finished Kitab Tahara, the book of Tahara, inshallah. There's a lot more details that we'll go through, but I think these are really the most important details, alhamdulillah, that we need to be aware of in Tahara. And inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we'll start with the second largest, I think Zoom just stopped 1 minute ago. Okay. So inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we will start with the second part of fiqh and the largest part of fiqh, which is salah. Salah is huge. Starts from adhan and ends with the janazah. Yeah, it's even larger than tahara. So inshallah, next week we'll start with salah, and there's a lot of important things to go over in salah. But regarding tahara, that's it. Any questions online or here? Yes, brother.
Maybe it's not that relevant, just correct me if I'm like sometimes it happens that you are using like super glue or any
Yes.
kind of a glue
Yes.
which sticks to your body, and you try to remove it and you are sure that you have moved, you make wudu,
Yeah.
and you pray, but after pray you see that okay, you find out something that okay, a small part was still there, which has prevented the water to reach your skin. So what shall we do?
So according to the famous opinion in the Shafi'i madhab, you have to repeat your salah. Okay, because the water didn't reach that part. There is other opinions inside the Shafi'i madhab that allow that kind of wudu if it's extremely hard. But generally the case is that if it's easy for you, if there's no hardship on you, you should take the famous opinion, the mu'tamad opinion, which is that you repeat your salah if the water didn't reach a part of your body.